Saudi Arabia just got hit. Aramco, the crown jewel of the global energy market, struck by Iranian Shahed 136 drones. And within hours, Saudi jets were already bombing Iranian oil pipelines. Ladies and gentlemen, the Gulf has officially entered the war. And what's unfolding right now is something most analysts didn't expect for weeks. Let me break it all down. Hit subscribe right now if you want the truth without the corporate filter. We cover what they won't every single day. Turn on notifications so you never miss when we expose the next major story. Do it now. Here's the sequence. Iran launched a direct strike on an Aramco refinery, one that produces roughly 500,000 barrels per day. The explosion is still burning. Emergency crews can't contain it. And this wasn't some proxy attack through the Houthis. This came from Iran directly. Now, Saudi Crown Prince had already warned that any second attack from Iran would trigger a military response. That warning, it just got cashed in. Saudi fighter jets are currently striking Iranian oil infrastructure in the Awaz region, a pipeline responsible for roughly 20% of Iran's crude exports. But here's where it gets bigger than Saudi Arabia. See, Iran didn't just hit Aramco. There are unconfirmed reports of oil refineries struck in Kuwait, a tanker burning off the coast of Bahrain, another tanker hit near Oman's shoreline, a water desalination plant, a water plant targeted in Qatar. And Iran has effectively shut down the Strait of Hormuz by jamming navigation signals on every vessel trying to pass through. Let that sink in. 20 million barrels of oil per day frozen. Qatar's gas exports frozen. And the EU just issued an emergency statement demanding an urgent assessment of its oil reserves. This isn't a military war anymore. This is an energy war. And Iran is making sure the entire world pays the price. Now, you might be asking, why would Iran drag the whole Gulf into this? Why hit Qatar, which literally had its foreign minister begging Washington not to strike Tehran? Why hit Oman, which hosted back-channel negotiations on Iran's behalf? Because Iran isn't fighting to win. Iran is fighting to not die quietly. When the U.S. eliminated Khamenei, and understand Khamenei wasn't just a political leader, he was the supreme religious authority, the head of every branch of governance. Iran lost its symbolic center. Senior clerics immediately issued a fatwa declaring vengeance a religious duty, not a political decision, a sacred obligation. So when Iran's foreign ministry says the armed forces are making decisions independently now, that tells you everything. The Revolutionary Guard is running the show. Diplomacy is dead. And Iran has decided this is their Karbala moment, a fight to the last man standing. Now, here's the part no one in Washington wants to talk about. Trump told the press this war would last 4 more weeks. 4 weeks. But according to the Pentagon's own assessment, the current military deployment is designed for a 10-day sustained campaign. That's a 3-week gap between political promises and military reality. And already on day 3, here's what's happened to U.S. forces. 3 American fighter jets downed. Initial reports say friendly fire from Kuwaiti air defenses that mistook returning F-15s for Iranian aircraft. Photos of American pilots surrendering to Kuwaiti police are circulating online. 3 U.S. soldiers confirmed killed, likely more. The USS Abraham Lincoln carrier group was targeted by 4 Iranian ballistic missiles, and 6 critical U.S. military installations across the Gulf have been damaged. According to the New York Times, not Iranian propaganda, the Washington Post is now reporting that senior military commanders are expressing concern about America's ability to degrade Iran's missile launch capability. They're hitting too many targets in too many countries simultaneously, and the U.S. simply can't cover all of them. This was supposed to be a one-and-done operation. That's the exact phrase Trump used with his generals. Go in, strike, get out. But Iran turned it into something very different. Let's zoom out. Because this stopped being a Middle Eastern conflict about 6 hours ago. Britain has officially declared war on Iran after Iranian strikes hit British bases in Cyprus. RAF Typhoon fighters are already deployed. France is moving the aircraft carrier Charles de Gaulle toward the eastern Mediterranean. And the French foreign minister just said Paris is prepared to enter the war in defense of Gulf allies. That's 3 nuclear-armed NATO nations now actively engaged against Iran. 3. And Jordan just partially closed its airspace. Iraq shut theirs down for 48 hours. Over 2,000 commercial flights canceled across 7 Gulf airports. Fly Dubai suspended operations until Tuesday. The EU is scrambling to figure out where its energy is going to come from now that both Russian pipelines and Gulf shipping lanes are compromised. Oil just touched $79 and climbing. Gold spiked to $5,400 an ounce. The dollar in Egypt jumped to 49.5 pounds, a sign that hot money is fleeing emerging markets at speed. And we're on day 3. Here's what most coverage is missing. Iran knows it can't win this war militarily. The math doesn't work. You're facing the combined firepower of the United States, Israel, Britain, possibly France, and eventually the Gulf states. That's an unwinnable equation. But Iran isn't trying to win the war. Iran is trying to make Trump lose the presidency. Think about it. Every dead American soldier has a family. Every downed fighter jet becomes a congressional hearing. Every burning oil tanker becomes a gas price spike that American voters feel at the pump. Trump built his brand on no foreign wars. He mocked Biden and Obama over Afghanistan, and now under his watch, American pilots are ejecting over Kuwait and carrier groups. are taking ballistic missile hits. The Democratic Party doesn't even need to campaign. The footage does it for them. CNN, which Trump has personally attacked, insulted, even called the anchor ugly on live television, is going to run every single casualty story on a loop. And when midterm elections come, Trump loses his congressional majority. And a president without Congress is a president without power. Iran knows this. That's the real strategy. Not military victory, political exhaustion. Now here's an angle nobody's covering. Trump just said publicly that he doesn't want Gulf states to formally enter the war. Why? Because every country that joins expands the battlefield. And an expanded battlefield means a longer war, more casualties, more political damage. Trump wants this contained even though Iran is making that impossible. But here's the Gulf's problem. Saudi Arabia just had Aramco hit. Qatar's Hamad International Airport was targeted. And by the way, you won't find that story on Al Jazeera. It's coming from CNN's direct reporting. Bahrain has a tower burning. The UAE intercepted over 540 drones and 165 ballistic missiles in a single cycle. Kuwait's airspace is compromised. These countries are already in the war. The only question is whether they announce it formally. And the reason they're hesitating, they don't trust that America will stay. They remember 2019 when Aramco got hit and Trump's response was, "How much will you pay us?" They remember Afghanistan. They remember the Kurds. The Gulf states are calculating something very specific. What happens the day after? Because if Iran's regime falls and a new government emerges, the first thing it'll say is, "You helped destroy us." And if Iran's regime doesn't fall, then the Gulf is exposed with no American guarantee. So where does this go from here? The honest answer is nobody knows. And I mean that literally. Every analyst, every think tank, every intelligence agency is operating on outdated models right now. The Atlantic published a piece this morning saying Khamenei's death was the result of a leadership style that couldn't read American intentions. An 86-year-old man who misjudged negotiations twice and held meetings that the U.S. was literally surveilling in real time. But here's the critical point. Whatever comes after Khamenei is going to be worse, more radical, more unpredictable. There are already reports, unconfirmed, that the new supreme leader has been killed within 24 hours of taking the role. Kurdish separatist movements inside Iran are reportedly mobilizing. The Revolutionary Guard is fracturing between operational command and political survival. Meanwhile, Iran's state television just announced, and I quote, "A great surprise for the world is coming shortly." We don't know what that means. Could be strikes on Gulf gas infrastructure. Could be an attempt on Diona, Israel's nuclear facility. Could be something nobody's even considered yet. Because when a state decides it has nothing left to lose, when it fights not for victory but for legacy, every red line disappears. Every calculation goes out the window, and every prediction becomes worthless. We are witnessing something that will reshape the Middle East, global energy markets, and American politics for a generation. And we're only 72 hours in. I'm going to keep covering this as it develops, pulling from American, European, and Arab sources because no single outlet is giving you the full picture. If you want to stay informed without the noise, subscribe and turn on notifications. I'll be back with an updated analysis as soon as the next major development breaks. Stay safe out there.